Hello and welcome to Compound Insights, CFA Society New York's podcast. I'm your host, Rob Rowan. Today we're talking about a very interesting topic, D&I in the auspice of quantitative investing firms. And we have a very special speaker with us today. Ken D'Souza, CFA, is a principal and portfolio manager of PGIM Quantitative Solutions. Before joining PGIM, Ken managed emerging markets portfolios at Battery March. And Ken earned a BS in chemical engineering from the Georgia Institute of Technology and an MS in both management science and engineering from Stanford. And he also got an MBA from Booth. He was on the board of CFA Society Boston and is on the board of the Society of Quantitative Analysts. SQA has been an excellent co-host of the January event, which many of members saw. So Ken, thank you for being here. We're going to start out with a general question about asset management firms. How do you think over the span of your career and also from general sources you see out there that asset management firms generally benefit from having diverse minds included in their staffs?
Sure. Well, Rob, first of all, I just want to thank you for that introduction and also for this opportunity. I'm really happy to be here. This particular topic, diversity and inclusion, it's near and dear to my heart. It's also one of the important initiatives at my firm, or really across the entire industry. And so I think it's important that we highlight a topic like this, and I'm glad that we're doing so. Now, to answer your question directly, the way I've always thought about it is that the most important asset of any organization is its people. I found that organizations that value and promote diversity are more open to innovation, and this is also supported by multiple academic studies. And essentially, the thought process behind it is that having teams that are diverse, and these could be diverse in terms of ethnicity or gender, abilities, or socioeconomic background, it changes the culture of an organization. It makes it more dynamic and less resistant to change, as differing points of view are constantly and consistently being voiced. As quants, we like to think in equations, and I would say that the equation here is that being diverse and inclusive equals being open to more alternative points of view and out-of-the-box thinking, which is critical to both the long-term survival and growth of any organization. Another benefit is that organizations with diverse workplaces, they solve problems faster. And once again, this is not my opinion. This is also supported by academic studies. And it's a paper by, let me just look at my notes, make sure I get it correctly, by Reynolds and Lewis in the Harvard Business Review that found that teams solve problems faster when they're more diverse. So quite telling just in the title in itself. And essentially what they found was that teams with little cognitive diversity will have limited ability to see things differently, engage in different ways, and look at experimenting versus analyzing or creating new options. Similarly, organizations with low cognitive diversity, they're slower to react to changes or new information. So, and lastly, I would just also add, and again, quite logically, diversity in the workplace, it boosts a company's reputation. A diverse company is seen as being more socially responsible, and a more desirable place to work, which can help with attracting top talent from diverse talent pools and can also help with employee retention. Companies with a diverse workforce, they're generally more accepting. They value they want their employees to feel valued and accepted. And generally, when you make your employees feel valued and accepted, they're happier in the workplace and stay longer in at the company. So as a result, companies with greater diversity in the workplace may also have lower turnover rates. And all of this that I've mentioned so far is not new. Another study that I'll highlight that's almost 20 years old now, but it's cited quite frequently, is Corporate Governance, Board Diversity, and Firm Value. It's by Carter, Simpkins, and Simpson. It's from 2003. But what they essentially did was they looked at the relationship between board diversity and firm value for Fortune 1000 firms, and examined and they define board diversity as the percentage of women, African Americans, Asians, and Hispanics on the board of directors. And they were looking to see whether having a more diverse board increased the firm's financial value. And after controlling for size, industry, and other corporate governance measures, they essentially found that there was a very significant positive relationship between diversity and firm value. And they also found that the proportion of women and minorities increases as a firm's board size and overall size increases. And so this study was over 20 years old. It's been validated multiple times since as well. So I think it's a strong argument both for our industry and also for the broad global context in general.
Right. I just want to note for the listeners that all of the studies that we mentioned today will be in the episode notes on our website if you want to see them for yourselves. Although I would assume that most people who are dialed into this are at least familiar with that one. Now, that last one does go essentially from the top down because it studies boards. There are some more recent surveys that have shown that asset management firms have been effective at attracting diverse talent, but not retaining it. You see very often that when people before they get to senior analyst levels, they tend to leave the firm. So, or junior portfolio manager levels, they tend to leave the firm. Why do you reckon that is?
Sure. Yeah. So I think, Rob, you asked a great question, and it's important to differentiate between attracting junior diverse members and also retaining senior diverse leaders at the firm. So firstly, I also think both those goals go hand in hand. It'll be hard to attract junior diverse members if there are no senior diverse leaders at the firm. Anyone you look to hire at junior level would wonder if there is some sort of glass ceiling that would restrict career growth. And similarly, if you have a senior diverse leader, it'd be harder to retain them if he sees that you're not hiring any more junior candidates. The logical question he or she would have is, does the firm really have a strong commitment towards diversity and inclusion, or whether it's just because it's a current hot topic? So having said that, besides the commonalities, there are certain differences as well that you have to take to make sure you meet both of those goals. And for junior employees, I would say it's important to have a comprehensive and attractive college recruiting process. It can also be beneficial to establish recruiting programs at some historically Black colleges and universities like Howard and Spelman College as well for targeting specific demographics. For retaining senior talent, I think that the firm should create an inclusive workplace involving everyone within the organization, department, or office. And the leaders need to take an especially active role in doing so. Should communicate early and often about ensuring that the workplace is inclusive. One particular action that I highlight that has worked across multiple companies and industries, and we're working in my firm as well, is affinity groups or employee resource groups, also known as business resource groups. And these are employee networks or colleague networks, which are an excellent way to make diverse employees feel welcome. They provide a good opportunity for folks to network with coworkers that look like them or have a similar background to them. At my firm, we have 7 business resource groups targeting different initiatives, and I just pull that up. It's we have the Abled and Disabled Associates Partnering Together, or ADAPT, the Asia Pacific Islander American Association, or APAA, the Black Leaders Forum, BLF, the Hispanic Heritage Network, HHN, LGBTQ and Allies, or Pride. And then we also have VetNet, catering towards veterans, and the Women's Initiative to Network, Grow, and Share. So a series of different business resource groups targeting different demographics to make them feel more inclusive and give them a chance to network with each other. This also gives them a voice because you get an advocate within this group to engage with senior leaders at the firm and really allow them to have a role in the overall strategy of the firm itself.
Right. Yeah. It's really interesting because your firm is, of course, a quant firm, which leads me to one of the other questions I thought about with this. Because quant firms tend to be quite innovative in their spaces and quite open-minded with their investments range and how they do it. I wonder why you think the quant subsector has struggled with diversity, because it seems like it should be easier in a way to have a diverse team at a quant firm. But tell me why it's not.
Sure. So I think most quant firms, in particular, what they've struggled with is gender diversity. They tend to be more ethnically diverse, with probably one exception being Black and Indigenous people of color. But gender diversity continues to be a challenge across the industry. And I wouldn't isolate it to just quant finance. I would broaden it to the entire STEM industry, or science, technology, engineering, and math. And if you look at some of the statistics for STEM as a whole, based on recent census data, African Americans and Latin workers continue to be underrepresented. So African Americans are 11% of the workforce overall, but they're only 9% of STEM workers. And Hispanic workers are even less represented. So they're 16% of the overall workforce, but they're only 7% of STEM workers. And gender diversity, like I said earlier, that's the other challenge. Over here, we've seen progress. If you look at the numbers within STEM itself. So if we compare census data going back to 1970, back then, women were just 8% of STEM, and they were about 30% of the overall workforce. And if we fast forward to 2019, now they're about 50% of the overall workforce. In 2019, they were at 48%. And at STEM, they're at 27%. So clearly we've seen progress going from 7% to 27% over this time period, but there's still a ways to go.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that we've talked about before, and I don't think anyone will mind hearing that you and I are both dads of relatively young kids.
Yes.
And you and I have talked this. So I got this podcast idea from some conversations we had about how you really open the playing field to your child, whether they're a boy or a girl, but particularly for girls, how you battle that social contract that is already in place that weighs down, how you send your kid out there. So, I guess one of the things I'm curious about is what you think leaders, or you can substitute the word dads in there, can do to help that go along.
Sure. Thanks, Rob. And as you know, I'm also a parent, and I've got a daughter and two sons, a girl and two boys. And like any other parent out there in the world, I want to give the best possible opportunities for my kids, and I want all of my children to have the same opportunities regardless of their gender. So this is something that's near and dear to my heart as well. In terms of what leaders can do, I'll begin with highlighting something important that leaders should not do, and that's diversity washing. You can't make improvements if you can't measure, and you need to measure your data properly and comprehensively. And it's important to have any changes that you make be both visible and meaningful. It should not just look good on paper. As a simple, for example, suppose you had a company that claimed it had doubled the number of minorities or women, going from 10 to 20. It's a lot more relevant on the number of employees that firm has in total. Suppose that firm only has 20 employees in total, or 50 employees in total, or 1,000 employees in total. And if a company has 1,000 employees in total, then going from 10 to 20 of one particular demographic or women, it's a step in the right direction, but clearly the firm still has quite a ways to go. So I would say diversity washing is certainly something that leaders should be aware of and should seek to avoid. It's just damaging and harmful to a firm. And hiring a person of color or a woman in a non-functional role just to focus on diversity is not a solution. One of the things that I would highlight is that companies need members of minority groups or women represented across all of the levels at their firm and across all of the departments. One thing I'm proud of at my particular firm is how we have a women CEO, Linda Gibson, a woman head of equity, Stacy Menz, and the team that I manage of analysts, 5 of the 8 quant analysts in my team are women as well. However, as a firm, we're at 35% of our employees are women. That's higher than the overall STEM average, but still shows that we have got more progress to make. And that's why I think we need to continue to focus on hiring and retaining people across all levels, executive, middle, and also entry level. One other point that I think is very important is promoting diverse and female role models across the industry. So if over the course of my career, like you had mentioned earlier, I've been active at CFA Boston, at CFA New York as well, and also the Society of Quantitative Analysts. And I've been active in arranging events, and across all of them, I've probably arranged around 30 or 40 different events with about 100 or so different speakers. But one particular panel that I am very proud of organizing was at last year's CFA New York SQA joint data science event that we host annually, where we had a panel of leaders in the quant finance industry talking about how they planned on using data science and nonlinear programming within their investment process. The entire panel of 4 speakers and 1 moderator were women. And each of them were the heads of either portfolio management or research or equity or deputy CIOs. We had Stacy Mintz, the head of equity at my firm, Lillian Qua, the head of research at Epic, Peg Diorio, she was the head of portfolio management and trading at Voya, and Irina Bogacheva, she was the head of asset allocation. It was QS at the time, but later became Franklin Templeton. And Lan Kai was the moderator. She's the deputy CIO at PBUCC. So I was proud that we were able to put together such a strong group of role models on one common stage for one of our events. And I think we need to do more of that. I think we need to continue to focus on promoting diverse and female role models across the industry.
Yeah, one of the things that I really appreciate about that panel and some of the other events with diverse minds that we put together is every once in a while, there are a decent number of attendees who don't even notice that it was an all-female panel because the ideas they brought were really valuable, right? Absolutely. So no one even cares. Just your good ideas. It's like, so it's great. Well, so we're kind of rounding down to the end here. Do you have any other thoughts on this? Because this has been fascinating. You clearly have been doing this for a long time and thinking about it in the context of research. Is there anything else that you could advise to the members here who maybe manage a team? And maybe it's not so diverse and want to do better with it, or is there anything else they shouldn't do, as you so rightly said earlier?
So maybe one other thing I'll highlight in the interest of time, Rob, is just what quants in particular can do. And so people who run systematic quant processes, they can make changes in their process themselves, either systematic or ad hoc, to incorporate some ESG metrics that are available within a variety of different data sources that highlight diversity and inclusion measures. One example that of a data set that's out there is the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, or SASB. It's quite widely used. And they're unique because they provide sustainability reporting that are explicitly designed to cover items that affect a particular industry and their material for that industry. And I know that they also have disclosure standards that are being applied uniformly across the industry that provide a percentage of gender or racial ethnicity, and they provide representation at different levels of the company, at executive, non-executive management, professional, and also at all employees. And similarly, there's other data sources as well, like Sustainalytics and Refinitiv. And so we do use some of this data within our investment processes, particularly within ESG products where clients have a preference for them. And those are some of the systematic approaches. On a more ad hoc basis, investors can also execute preferences through proxy voting. And here we have seen more improvements again overall globally. Within emerging markets, when I was looking at the statistics, currently women hold 13.5% of board seats. Within developed markets, it's at 26%. So it's made progress. Emerging markets 5 years ago was at around 12%. So it has gone higher, but both emerging and developed markets still have a ways to go. Within emerging markets, there's some countries like Malaysia and South Africa, they're at 27 to 28%. They're among the highest. But then there's other countries like Qatar, which are at 0. There's not a single female board member across any of the companies listed in the emerging market index. And this is where I think that you have to have cultural change. A government mandate can help. And there are some countries like India, Malaysia, Pakistan, Korea, Turkey, and UAE. Those emerging market countries actually have a law that certain number of women have to, a certain number of board members have to be women. And there are some other countries that have laws similarly for state-owned enterprises. But it's important to point out that real change doesn't end with meeting mandatory government quotas.
True, but it can start with good regulation too.
Exactly.
Right? Exactly. You need it because otherwise the culture will go along in its way. But perhaps it's a good place to leave it is on a combination of data and culture, as SQA members and CFA Society New York members really like their time series.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Ken. I just want to let everyone know who's listening into the podcast that our next podcast is going to be called Reading Emerging Markets Policies and Macro Impacts with the rising star at AIG, Jen Liang, CFA. So I hope you all tune in for that. Thank you.